Grammar Girl here. I'm Mignon Fogarty, your friendly guide to the English language. We talk about writing, history, rules, and other cool stuff. Today, we're going to go through the origins of some fun kitchen jargon, and then I answer the question, was I wrong to refer to the good people of Michigan as Michiganders? And we'll talk about these denizen labels in general. If you've ever worked in a restaurant or even dined in a restaurant with an open kitchen, you've probably noticed that the staff has its own lingo. Consider this statement. Hey Bob, we're in the weeds, so we need to get these tickets to the expo on the fly. I need 4 fillets, 1 killed, 2 orders of pommes frites, 1 salad, 86 the mushrooms all day. And we're waxing table 11, so fire this ticket now. I'll give you the translation at the end, but for now, let's explore restaurant lingo and how it came to be. Lingo is a way of speaking shared by a particular group of people, like family slang or the Familect examples you hear at the end of every show. It could also be a unique set of terms and phrases used in a particular field. And you might also call it jargon, which is language used by people in a particular occupation and often includes technical terms that people in that field would understand. Jargon can actually be very useful for people who are in the know, so to speak. Restaurant work is demanding and stressful, and using common language can make communication easier and speed up service. As Nathan Dubé, executive chef of restaurant strategy, deployment, and coaching firm KRG, says, quote, "A busy kitchen can be a hot, intense, and stressful environment. Having full-on conversation takes up valuable time. When actions need to be conveyed quickly and efficiently between 2 parties or a full team, in a loud and fast-paced environment, slang develops out of necessity," unquote. The eclectic personalities found in kitchens often make their lingo funny and a little spicy, pun intended. Restaurant lingo is so widespread that of the 690 new words added to the Merriam-Webster dictionary in 2023, more than 20 were related to food in restaurants. Included in this list are chefy, which means characteristic of or benefiting a professional chef, as in roulades are a chefy way to serve pork loin with stuffing, and smash burger, as in smash burgers start life as 3 to 4 ounce balls of ground meat, then get smashed flat onto a hot griddle. A lot of restaurant lingo involves restaurant operations and food preparation. First, chefs use the popular term 86 when an item or dish on the menu is out of stock or something isn't up to their standards. Or a server might tell the kitchen to 86 an ingredient if a customer doesn't want it, as in 86 the mushrooms on that burger. According to the Michelin Guide, this term began in the Prohibition era in the U.S., when it was illegal to serve alcohol. Quote, "Police officers were paid off to warn the bartenders at Chumley's in downtown Manhattan to 86 their customers before a raid. That meant to get rid of their clientele by sneaking everyone out through the rear exit at 86 Bedford Street," unquote. Next is expo, which is short for expediter, one of the most important people in the kitchen. This person organizes, plates, and sometimes garnishes the food at the pass, where servers pick up meals, and makes sure it reaches hungry diners quickly and well prepared. Now, you might think all day means, well, the entire day. But in a kitchen, it actually refers to the total number of items needed at a particular moment. For example, an expediter might say, "I need 4 shrimp scampi, 2 mushroom risottos, and 3 fillets all day," meaning the total number of items needed at that time for a single or multiple tables. It's not entirely clear where this usage of all day comes from, but it can be found in an article originally published in the South Florida Sun-Sentinel in May 2000, where they described it as, quote, "a reminder and, at the same time, a check on ingredients that may be running short," unquote. And here's one that demonstrates the humor needed to make it through a shift in the kitchen. Kill it. This means to cook a piece of meat well done at the diner's request, and much to the chagrin of most chefs. Conversely, still mooing means cooked very rare. For hosts and servers, top refers to the total number of possible seats or people at a table. So a server might say, "Oh no, it's a half an hour till closing and there's a 7 top at my 8 top in my section," to mean 7 people at a table that holds 8, a big party. This term is thought to come from the term tabletop. Next, if you've ever watched Gordon Ramsay or The Bear, you're familiar with the loud "heard" or "yes, chef" in response to an order or instruction being called out to ensure everyone is on the same page. Similarly, cooks and servers will yell "behind" or "corner" to alert others to their presence and avoid collisions. Finally, clopen is a portmanteau, a combination of the spellings and meanings of two or more other words or word parts, of close and open. In a restaurant, it means working back-to-back closing and opening shifts. Exhausting. Next, restaurants need special equipment, so here are a couple of fun terms heard in kitchens. One of the most interesting is the salamander, which looks something like an industrial toaster oven and uses high heat to broil or brown dishes. And yes, it is also a cute amphibian, and the origin of the word used in kitchen lingo is interesting. There's a huge mythology around salamanders being resistant to fire and heat. In fact, according to an article in Wired, at one time asbestos was referred to as salamander wool. Salamanders aren't actually resistant to fire. They hibernate in logs, so when ancient people threw one on the fire, a log, sometimes a roughly awakened salamander would run out of the flames. As for the kitchen equipment, in the 1700s, French and Italian chefs would achieve the broiling effect by heating a metal disc in a fire and then holding it over the food. The disc was attached to a long rod that was set on 2 feet, and in its resting state, it resembled a salamander. According to the Antique Metalware Society website, it was that look, combined with the fire myth, that gave the contraption its name. So the next time you're enjoying your creme brulee topped with caramelized sugar, thank one of the little critters. Another funny gem of restaurant lingo is Chef Mike, which refers to, gasp, a microwave oven. Hey, even in restaurants, it can be handy for quick tasks. Not surprisingly, a lot of restaurant lingo comes from French and Italian, given their culinary histories and love of food. Mise en place, a French term meaning everything in its place, refers to the preparation and gathering of ingredients or equipment so orders can be efficiently completed. Next, à la minute means to the minute or exactly in French, and describes a dish that has to be made fresh when a diner orders it, as opposed to something prepared in advance, like a sauce that sits on the stove all day to be used as needed. And ever wonder what the sous vide cooking craze is all about? In French, the phrase means under vacuum and means cooking food in vacuum-sealed pouches to make it extra juicy and yummy. In Italian, al dente means to the tooth and is the ideal way to cook pasta, slightly undercooked according to most Italian chefs and diners. It has a slightly chewy, not mushy texture. Many restaurants offer al fresco dining during nice weather, meaning in the fresh air in Italian. It refers to outdoor seating. Finally, as promised, here's the translation of the example at the beginning of the segment. Hey Bob, we are super busy, so we have to get these orders to the expediter right away. I need 4 fillets, 1 well done, 2 orders of French fries, 1 salad, no mushrooms, all right now. We're giving VIP treatment to table 11, so start cooking this order right away. That segment was by Susan Herman, a retired multidisciplined language analyst, editor, and instructor for the federal government. Grammar Pelusian David texted, noting that I called the people of Michigan Michiganders at the beginning of the recent segment on why some word sets are so different, like the verbs go and went. He said, quote, "As you may be aware, after a century of arguing about it, Michiganders have not come to a consensus, except, of course, regarding the people of Ohio." Smiley face. So, Michiganders versus Michiganians. What's the history and which one is better? Unquote. Well, David, I am certainly not going to resolve an issue that's been raging for more than a century, but I guess I am bold enough to try to shed some light on it. Here's what I found about the good people of Michigan. Merriam-Webster and Gardner's Modern English Usage both list 3 possible names: Michigander, Michiganian, and Michiganite. By every measure I could find, Michiganite is the least popular of the three and relatively rare, so I'm going to set that one aside. So an n-gram from a Google Books search shows that Michigander is by far the most popular and has been for a long time. It's outflanked Michiganian since the mid-1800s, and the most recent data from 2022 shows that Michigander appears more than 1,000% more often than Michiganian. A poll conducted in 2011 of Michigan residents wasn't that dramatic, but it did also reveal a strong preference for Michigander, which got 58% of the vote compared to only 12% for Michiganian. Not only is Michigander more popular, it's also the official name used by the state government, as determined by a line in Senate Bill number 562 that reads, "Michigander means a resident of the state of Michigan." That state bill passed unanimously in 2017. But the federal government has other ideas for the Great Lakes state. The U.S. Government Printing Office style manual lists Michiganian as the state's demonym, or name for the populace. So where did these names come from? Well, Michiganian is older. The first reference in the Oxford English Dictionary is from 1813. Michigander doesn't show up until 1838. Some sources suggest Abraham Lincoln coined the Michigander name when he used it in a speech to insult Lewis Cass, who had been the governor of Michigan Territory before it became a state. Possibly calling on the idea of male goose tails? It's a little unclear. But the dates don't line up. That speech was in 1848, 10 years after the OED's first citation. Lincoln's speech certainly may have given the name a boost, though. And it's funny that even though it was originally an insult, it's the most popular term people use for themselves today. Also, fittingly, when Lincoln insulted Cass, Cass was running for president on a platform of states' rights. And now, in the battle over what to call the state's residents, the people are rejecting the name preferred by the federal government, essentially saying it's the state's right to determine the name. To heck with the feds. There's at least one small problem with the name, though. In an article titled Names for Americans in the journal American Speech, H.L. Mencken wrote in 1947 that, quote, "The chief objection to Michigander is that it inspires idiots to call a Michigan woman a Michigoose and a child a Michigosling. But the people of the state have got used to this and apparently prefer it to Michiganite." Unquote. Are you used to it, Michiganders? Do you even hear it? Anyway, Mencken also reported having seen Michiganer and Michiganese. Interestingly, that article also notes that at the time, the U.S. Government Printing Office listed Michiganite as the designation, so it seems the name is ever-changing. And I can't finish talking about people from Michigan without talking about Yoopers, the unofficial name for people who live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That nickname comes from the initials UP for Upper Peninsula. And moving beyond Michigan, it's not the only state with naming squidginess, not by far. In fact, the 1947 Mencken article reviews just how varied these names can be, running through many states that have multiple terms: Floridan versus Floridian, Texian, Texican, and Texan, for example. An 1842 citation in the OED for Michigander also includes New Hampshirer, which is now more commonly New Hampshireite, and Massachusettser, which is now more commonly Massachusettsite or Massachusettsan. We actually wrote more extensively about these demonyms or denizen names back in July of 2022, and there are some rough guidelines about how to form these names. If you're interested, it's episode 879. For example, I called David, who asked the question, a Grammar-Paloozian, which, if you imagine that Grammar-Palooza is a place, actually follows the pattern for place names that end in A or IA, in the same way that someone from California is a Californian. And thanks for the question, David, and for your support of the show. It's really tough for podcasters and writers these days, and your support really does make a difference. It helps me keep going, answering listener questions, and just generally spreading the love of language. You get some great benefits like an ad-free version of the podcast and bonus episodes. But really, the biggest benefit is just knowing that you helped. Knowing that you told me my work matters or makes your day better. So if you can, visit quickanddirtytips.com/bonus to learn more and sign up. Finally, I have a Familect story from JD.
Hello, my name is JD Wright. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I've got a Familect story for you. My grandmother, who had a big hand in raising me and who had quite the wit and the mouth, used two words that I haven't heard from anyone outside of our family: Jakey and cocky. I learned early on that you didn't want either word applied to you or something you'd done because they were both terms of disparagement. As a teenager, and more as a piece of fun than out of genuine curiosity, I asked her which was worse. She didn't hesitate for a moment. Cocky was definitely the adjective to avoid more diligently. I never knew or asked while she was alive about the difference, but thinking about it over the years, I believe I figured it out. They're both used to describe things that are tacky, but something jakey is tacky because you didn't try hard enough, while something cocky is tacky because you tried too hard. A dead refrigerator on your front porch? That's jakey. A lady's formal hat made out of a dozen lace doilies accented with orange tulips? That would be cocky. But there was something even worse than those two. If you had some kind of setup that transcended tackiness and was instead just rank, disgusting filth, Grandma would call that hyarny. I miss Grandma, and sometimes I wish that I'd asked her how that was spelled. Love your podcast. Keep it up. Thanks.
Thanks, JD. What great words. And you're not alone. I find that the spelling question comes up a lot. If you want to share your family word story, your Familect, you can use WhatsApp or voicemail, and you'll find all the information in the show notes. Grammar Girl is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast. Thanks to Brannan, Goetschius, Director of Podcasts, Davina, Tomlin, and Nat Hoops in Marketing, Holly Hutchings in Digital Operations, Dan Feierabend in Audio, and Morgan Christianson in Advertising, who likes to bake and recently made some Banana Foster's cookies. Sounds delicious. And I'm Mignon Fogarty, better known as Grammar Girl and author of the tip-a-day book, The Grammar Daily. That's all. Thanks for listening.